All right, for more now on the president's overseas visit, let's welcome in president of Streelmark LLC Business Development Consultants, Hillary Fordwich. Hillary, I mean, no one does it better than the Brits when it comes to the pomp and circumstance. This will be the historic first president to have a second official state visit.
Yeah.
What does that signal to you about the state of the special relationship between the U.S. and the U.K.?
Well, I think it's very healthy, and I'm glad to see that President Trump, this is actually very historic. As you mentioned, it's the only time in history. And actually, there's only two other presidents that have ever had any state visits. Surprisingly, it was President Obama and also George W. Bush. We can all envision Ronald Reagan riding at Windsor Castle, riding along on his horse with the former Queen. And of course, we have many presidents visit from JFK, but they weren't all state visits. This is very important, Mark, the distinction. What President Trump won't be doing, he won't be addressing Parliament because they're in recess, and there's much speculation about that being rather planned because, of course, they didn't want any discourse or any uproar in Houses of Parliament when you have many on the left, the Labour Party, against President Trump's policies. And he also won't be in London or going through the streets of Windsor. President Macron of France was, of course, in an open carriage going through the streets of Windsor. But what President Trump will be doing, as you mentioned, he will be staying at Windsor Castle overnight. He will be making a private visit to the tomb of the former Queen, Queen Elizabeth. He will be laying a wreath there where she's buried with her husband, Prince Philip, her parents, King George VI, the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret. Then President Trump will also be on an open carriage through the grounds of Windsor with the Princess of Wales, the Princess Catherine of Wales, and they will have then military from the RAF, and all sides of all the military in the UK will be on the grounds of Windsor Castle, and they will be going through the grounds. There will also be a flyover of US bombers and the RAF. So, as you mentioned, lots of pomp, lots of circumstance before he goes to Chequers.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing all of the pomp and circumstance that will take place.
Hillary, I mean, look, the Trump derangement syndrome in the UK, well documented. They love displaying it. I remember that during the first term. But France's government has collapsed. The conservatives in the UK are taking over. Germany is turning to the right. And we just saw a outpouring of support on the streets of bloody London over the weekend for Charlie Kirk. Do you think the narrative in a trip like this has a chance to actually strengthen the conservative movement that's taking over in Europe?
Well, one would hope so, Mark. And actually, the Conservative actual party is collapsing because so many of their ministers are actually elected MPs, members of Parliament, are actually defecting to reform Nigel Farage's party. So there's been two parties in the US for over a century. And with the collapsing of the Conservative Party, I really take umbrage at it being determined or characterized as far right. But yes, you're right about that protest in London. And with these defections, there were actually purported to be about 150,000. It was far more like probably 3 million when you saw how far those crowds stretched. And of course, they were chanting Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. But what's really important about this is what you mentioned, Mark. And that is, across Europe, there is lack of tolerance for this basic invasion of illegal immigrants. And I always think about when the Nazis were repelled. Could you imagine having all those young men that died to defend the sovereignty of the British Isles if all those Nazis had been offered free hotels for 6 months, free food for 6 months, and cell phones when they got on the beaches? I don't think so.
You're absolutely right. All right, Hillary, thank you both for your insight this morning. We'll be talking with you more this week, I'm sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.